Having had a look at working with events and properties, in this video we'll look at the syntax for homing in on individual objects. The basic syntax involves referring to the object either by its name or by its position within the collection. However, as we'll see, there are one or two other syntactical variations which it's worth discussing. Let's open up the section 6 folder, and then inside that let's open up 0601 tables. Then we can go across to developer, document template, and attach. Then let's work our way into the exercises folder and attach our Word VBA training template. When we then go into Visual Basic, we have access to all the modules in the template. Let's just scroll down to the bottom here and let's add in a macro. And let's simply call it referencing objects. And then let's switch across to procedure view. The normal method of referring to a document is to use its name as an index. The reason for this is that it's quite difficult to know what position the document will occupy within the documents collection. The documents collection, of course, is all the documents that are currently open in Word, and it's the order in which documents are opened or created that determines their position within the collection. So you'll normally only identify documents numerically when you're looping through all of them, perhaps making modifications to each one or examining each one in some way. So let's say we want to create a reference to the document we've just opened. We could declare a variable, doctables as document, and then to identify it, we would use its name. So set doctables equals documents, and then in brackets and double quotes, we would put its name. Let's just copy it. And then we can test our code by saying MSG box, and I won't bother putting the parameter name because I'm going to take this out in a moment. Doctables.tables.count, and we should get 12 tables. When working with objects within the document, such as tables, paragraphs, words, etc., again, there is always a possibility that you'll need to loop through them, but the norm is usually that you use a numeric method of indexing them. So in the case of the tables, the number of each table is set up by its position within its container. As you probably remember, each table is headed by a month, and so obviously the January table will be the first and the December table will be the last. Let's put that to the test. So if we say doctables, and then brackets 12.select, when we run our code, if we move back to the document, you'll see it selected the 12th and last table. Let's just deselect it. If we weren't sure what the last table was, and we still wanted to target it, then we could use the count property of the table's collection. Since the first item is 1, then however many tables there are, which is what count tells us, must also be the index of the last one. So here we could say doctables.tables.count. If we were going to use this number for something else, we would put it into a variable and then use the variable thereafter. Okay, so let's delete this select statement and let's just finish off our macro. We'll say that we want to insert some text in the tables corresponding to the last month in each quarter, and we want to complete all 4 columns. So we've got our headings, and we want to actually write some text in each of these cells. So we want to put in report name, author, due date, percent complete 0, and department, let's say IT. So the first thing is we'll need a counter to control the looping, and because we don't want to process every single item, a numeric counter will be best. So dim I as integer, and then we can create a for loop for I equals 3, i.e. the 3rd month, to 12, and we then need to go up in jumps of 3, so step 3. Next I. Then let's create a range variable for ourselves, so let's dim RNG data as range, and we can now inside the loop set RNG data equal to doctables dot tables I, so we're looping through all the relevant tables. Then we want the second row dot rows 2, and let's target the first cell dot cells 1, and finally dot range. And what we're interested in here is the text inside the range, and then the text inside the range next to that, and so forth. So to target the text inside that cell, we can now say rngdata.text equals, and let's say it's going to be quarter 1, quarter 2, etc. So we have quarter, ampersand, and we now want a 1, 2, 3, and 4, as opposed to a 3, 6, 9, and 12. We can get that by dividing I by 3. And let's finish off with the word report. That takes care of the text inside the first cell. In the second cell, we want the author, and let's use application.username for that. So we've got RNG data set to the first cell, and we now want to write into the second cell. Fortunately, the range object has a special method which enables us to do that. It's the next method. So we can simply say rngdata.next, and then we've got 2 parameters, both optional, but for clarity we'll use both of them. So the unit will be WD cell, and the count will, of course, for the first one be 1. And I've put a space, but I've now realized that we haven't finished the statement, so we will need to have brackets around these parameters so that we can now say .text equals application.username. And then we've got 3 more cells to do. We have date due, percent complete, and department. So we'll just copy this and increase the count. So here we want the date due. And let's say it's going to be 30 days from the current date. So we can generate it by saying format now plus 30. So now will give us the current date, and then we add 30 days to it, and then the format can simply be dd/mm/yy. Next we want percentage complete. At this point in time it's 0%. And finally we have department, which we said we were going to make IT. So let's test our code. We save, and then run. So there's November, September, June, and March. Just one last thing to mention before we close this topic, and that's a couple of special objects that you can use which refer to document objects. First of all, we have the active document, which is self-explanatory. It's the document at the forefront in the Microsoft Word interface. And then we have this document, which is a special object referring to the document that contains the macro that's currently running. So let's write a quick macro which will test to see whether the macro is running in the active document or not. So I'm just going to go back to full module view and then sub 0604B, and let's call it active document. And we can simply say if active document is, and this is a special keyword that you use when you're comparing two objects. It can't be used, for example, on regular data variables. That would be an equal sign. It's purely for either document variables or document object references as we're using here. So if active document is this document, then MSG box current macro running in active document, else MSG box current macro running in another document. And if. So at the moment, the active document is tables, and of course our macro is running in GCS Word VBA training. So when we run it, we should get the second, the else. This document object is very useful because it means that you can use that code in a different document and it will still run. To reference an object within a collection by name, use the syntax name of collection and in parentheses name of object. To reference an object within a collection by position, use the syntax name of collection and in parentheses X, where X is the position of the item. Within a document, the position of an object within a collection corresponds to its position within its parent object. When an object is added to a collection, it takes up position 1 in the collection, and all other objects move up one place. To reference the last item in a collection, use the syntax name of collection and in parentheses name of collection.count.